The kids came over around the Marines because the Marines had candy and had goodies, and the kids were looking for that. And unfortunately, in the midst of this, one of the youngsters was up close with one of the Marines and managed to pull the pin out of a hand grenade that was on his belt. And of course, the hand grenade went off and killed the Marine, killed the kid, several others in the area, injured and wounded a lot of other people, at which point everybody that was able grabbed somebody that you could and hauled butt for the helicopters. And they were already cranking up. Somewhere between where we were and the bird, there was a Vietnamese came running out of the woods, and he had a rifle. And of course nobody knew who he was or what he was, so the crew chief swung the M60 around and made short work out of him.
And SOG had a variety of missions. Primarily was intelligence gathering. You had small teams, maybe 6 or 7 indigenous mercenaries and a couple of Green Beret Special Forces NCOs, or low-ranking officers who were on the team, maybe 8 or 9 man team altogether. And they did not wear military uniforms, they did not wear dog tags, they didn't wear anything, any kind of identification that would associate them with the United States government. And just like on some of the spy movies you see, we were told that they would disavow knowledge of us if we were captured or whatever. And again, you went into these operations wearing what they called sterile uniforms. Operations in Cambodia, you didn't even carry U.S. weapons. You had to carry Swedish Ks or AK-47s or so on. Some of our teams actually dressed in North Vietnamese uniforms when they crossed the border. They gathered intelligence along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. They would be dropped 20 miles into Laos, and they would move maybe 4 or 5 clicks to the Ho Chi Minh Trail, set up 10 feet off of the road, hide in the bushes, and then count the number of trucks that went by, or tanks, or personnel, and then back off and call airstrikes on them. Another mission that we had was POW snatch, to try and grab a prisoner of war. The team leaders carried 22s with silencers for that purpose, and that was always a secondary mission on every SOG mission that was run.
If you were flying as pilot command, you flew in the right seat, and you shot. Normally, you shot rockets. The miniguns were attached to the left seat, but you could fire them in a stowed position. But the left seat could just like a hose, you know, just put it wherever. And then you had both door gunners in the back, so they were just awesome when you're breaking away from a target, because they can see behind and keep firing on the target, so you can get. You know, you can get out of Dodge. And it is amazing how many bullet holes you can put in a helicopter and not knock it down. The door gunners are worth their weight in gold.
The NVA forces was the organized military force that we were really the Marines and the Army were going to war with all the time. The Viet Cong were the guerrilla forces on the side.
The Viet Cong, they had no uniforms. They were just pajamas, and that's about all.
Anywhere they could disrupt our progress with the people was what they wanted to do. And if it involved a disruption of humanitarian efforts, that was it. Intimidate the people to not befriend and not trust the Americans.
The Viet Cong were there, and should they know that a certain village received help from us, intelligence, then they in turn would have harm caused to them by the Viet Cong, either to those people that may have talked or to their family, and I'm talking deaths. So, if somebody were to ask you a question and you know that if you answered it you may be killed, would you answer the question?
Searching for the enemy! Move out!
In In a book by John Plaster, who I served with, called The Secret Commandos, he talks about SOG in 1968 had a 100% casualty rate, and that's why they called it extremely hazardous duty. And everybody in the particular unit I was supposed to go to was either killed, wounded, or missing in action. And there were some guys who weren't hit, but there were some other guys who were hit multiple times, and they had some very high casualty rates throughout the war. And in that book, it's related about 18 teams were either completely overrun or lost and never heard from again. You were working with either Vietnamese or Chinese or Cambodian mercenaries, and every now and then you got a bad guy who was on your team, and every now and then you'd have a team that was never heard from again.
We always had 2 South Vietnamese regular soldiers with each of our squads who were used primarily for interpretation. And I never trusted them. They would always be speaking in Vietnamese, and they knew English very well, almost all of them. And I always assigned a couple men in my squad to watch them all the time, particularly at night. I would never allow them out of my sight, my squad's sight, because I didn't know whether they were really on our side or helping out the Viet Cong.
I ended up on bridge security, so I was outside the compound when we got hit. We had claymore mines all around the compound. All the wires to the claymore mines had already been cut, so you had an inside job. So I'm shooting down the road because they were crossing the road towards the compound in front of me, and I'm firing in that direction, and there's nobody over there by me, but as clear as I'm talking to you, a voice came into my head and said, "Move now." So I moved around to the corner of the bunker, and just as I put my rifle to my shoulder and got ready to start firing again, the whole thing blew up. Knocked me down by the river into a bunch of concertina wire, busted my left eardrum, and you know, more of the concussion effects and some other stuff, but nothing serious. I crawled back up. I mean, I remember could hear the other guys yelling from the other side, yelling my name to see if I was still alive, and you know, finally as my head cleared enough I could respond. And I looked around the front, and that post where I'd been leaning against had about maybe that much of it sticking out. A B-40 rocket had hit. Now you hear them talking in Iraq and Afghanistan about the RPGs, rocket-propelled grenades, and that B-40, that's what those were. But that was probably the one time where I really didn't know that I was going to make it through that night.
I am indeed fortunate. Out of the 14 original men in my squad that I started with, 2 of us came back.
I came back from Vietnam. I was home for 30 days leave. I went to Portsmouth Naval Hospital to another school and went on with my career and didn't miss a beat.
Well, I tell you what, I had a great time. I saw a lot of things, had a great bunch of people, have a wife and 2 fine kids. Yeah, I wouldn't trade it for anything, I really would.
It's a great adventure. Came back, you know, you're always young and married. The welcome back home was not, by then things had changed quite a bit. It wasn't the welcoming, hey, you know, from people around you, you know, and you just had to kind of assimilate back into society and keep your head low and, you know, not you know, broadcast that you were, you know, a Vietnam veteran that much. Wasn't a real popular thing.
We have some boys and girls now that go to Afghanistan and Iraq and Kuwait, and God bless them all, each and every one of them, and I mean that. When they return, people throw confetti at them. When I returned from Vietnam, people threw things at me. And it's a shame. I personally do not believe we belonged in Vietnam, but I was a good Marine. I did what I was told, and I like to think I did it well. Going through 4 years of the Marine Corps and all that I did, I like to think that I matured a little bit. Well, I can tell you I did, quite a bit. And I decided at that point that I was going to go to college.
It was extremely difficult for me when I got back. You know, I had just turned 21 when I was discharged, and the previous year I ran top secret missions, some very, very difficult ones with Special Forces NCOs and indigenous mercenaries. I ran some of the hardest missions they had and did it successfully and brought my people home. And when I got discharged and just sitting around Trenton, it was like, what am I going to do now? There's nothing in the world that is going to be as hard as what I just did. Am I going to be an insurance salesman or a stockbroker or work in a steel mill? I was kind of baffled at that point. And that's when education, you recognize that it's a valuable thing. That's what I decided to do, was take advantage of my GI Bill and go back to college and develop some time to think about it and some maturity to know what I wanted to do. The bottom line is, to me, I had two paths to choose. One was a very mundane path of going to college and getting a deferment and doing that thing. The other path was to go to Vietnam and meet and serve with heroes and legends. And that was the path I chose, and I'm extremely proud that I did.
Leo and his family epitomized the service, sacrifice, and the courage of the true heroes of the Vietnam War. In Washington, D.C., the name Leo C. Chase, Jr. is engraved in the wall, the granite monument dedicated to those who paid the ultimate price in the Vietnam War. But his name, and the names of more than 58,000 others, is deeply engraved in living memorials. They are engraved in the hearts and minds of everyone who served with them, those who carry the burden of their loss. But they carry that burden willingly because they're brothers.